So I'm Matt from Pigs, and I do all of the shouting. That's me. That's my job.
Nice. You're not going to be shouting at me today, are you?
I hope not. It depends what you say.
True. We've got 10 minutes worth of shouting or pleasantries. We'll see which way it
Yeah,
lands.
yeah,
Very nice. Thanks for joining us today, mate. You look very sprightly this time of day.
yeah. I might look like that. I don't feel like it. It's all an illusion.
Very nice. Now, we're here today to speak about the fact that I'm going to call you lots of pigs because I can't count that high to seven. So lots of pigs. You released your fifth studio album, Death Hilarious, earlier this month. So how's the early reception been for it?
It's been good. We've just finished. Well, we're kind of in the middle, I suppose, of our UK touring. Um, we've just got our home show, the hometown shows left now. Actually, we're doing three this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at a venue in Newcastle called the Star and Shadow. So 3 nights in a row should be fun. And we've done like the bulk of the rest of the UK tour, and it's been fantastic. A really, really a lot of fun. Probably I'd say personally speaking, like the best tour we've ever done. Um, just yeah, really well received. Lots of excited, energetic people coming to the shows, and then also like having 5 albums worth of songs to be able
Mm.
to construct a set and a performance with is a joy. So yeah, it's been real good.
Yeah, nice. How do you actually gauge the success of an album in the modern age of music, mate? Like I remember back in the days, you get your gold records to hang on the wall and shit. Now you get your little plaques, but these days everything's online and streaming and shit. So how do you actually
Yeah,
know, aside from at the shows when you're looking at people singing your songs, how do you know how good you've gone with it?
it's being at the shows and seeing
Yeah.
people actually do it. Honestly, that's it. Like I I obviously appreciate, anyone that takes the time to listen to the album and review it or like, speak to us and help us promote the band. That's always we're really grateful for that. But yeah, for me, it's like it is just being at the shows and just seeing people's reaction to it. That's all we're really in it for.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, and everything else is just like, as you say, kind of exists as like streaming numbers and things like that. But I long since have disregarded my uh my obsession with those. I don't think, yeah,
Too much of a rabbit hole to go down for me.
it is. Yeah, I just think. I don't know. Like when you look at like streaming numbers and viewing figures and things like that, I think it's really like unhealthy thing for a musician to do and to focus
Mm.
on. Um, and I think, I've got quite strong opinions on this, and I have thought about it probably a little too much. But yeah, for me, like the best thing I think the music industry as a whole could implement. I mean, obviously you're talking about like, different businesses and different corporations, but if all of the numerical data was removed from being public facing,
Mm.
like there's no need for it. Like when you log on to Spotify, there's no need for me as a listener to see how many times a song or an album has been streamed. There's
Yeah.
absolutely no reason for that. And the only reason that it exists is to sort of push and influence the record labels and the artists into promoting the streaming service.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
all it's there for. Because the record labels and the artists suddenly become aware that data is public and may influence the way people perceive the band. But
Yeah.
it's got nothing to do with the quality of the music. So just
Yeah.
get rid of it. Yeah,
You're
music.
right too. Like I say, I don't want to go too deep into it because you could talk for hours, but people become
Yeah,
obsessed by those figures, don't they? It's like they're looking at it to see how much it's gone up and stuff, and it's like, enjoy your life, bro. There's nothing you can do about it. It's just figures on a fucking screen.
yeah. That's it. Yeah. It's
Yeah, sweet. So, well, back to the album Death Hilarious, bro. Can you dive into it a bit deeper for us from a musical point of view and what you were going for this time around?
Yeah, I guess like I mean we're a weird band. We don't in the sense that we don't all get together before we start writing an album and kind of discuss what direction we'd like to take it in. Which I think is pretty odd and probably not very efficient. But we
What?
do we do just get together in a room and everyone will have worked on different things or have like, different fragments of ideas for songs. And we just kind of get together in one room and present those with each other and some things kind of click amongst all of us and some things don't. And those things we'll just park for a rainy day and see if there's um yeah, see if it works at a later date, but we'll kind of focus on everything that people bring that all of us as a five-piece unit are all in on. And then like from that point, once we start like developing the kind of I suppose like the skeletons of what the songs are. Sam, he also records and produces our albums as well. So he like at the writing stage, he's also thinking about where what the songs what how the songs are developing in terms of what he can do in on a production level to
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
enhance what's coming out in the when we're writing. And I think with this one, like the songs were kind of presenting themselves as being a bit more, maybe a bit more assertive, a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more immediate. So, that's where he took the production as well. Maybe just pushed things a little bit harder, um, in terms of like I don't know. I don't know that I'm not a producer, but got things maybe slamming against the wall a little bit more than they were on Land of Sleeper. But again, like Land of Sleeper was an album where the songs were coming together, and Sam figured actually there's like room for me to add a lot of additional layers to to the production and kind of um, make it maybe, yeah, just a little bit more textured. Whereas like the new album is a lot more kind of straightforward and a little bit more like rough and ready, I suppose. He described the Land of Sleeper album as being a headphones listen, whereas this one he wanted it to be like turn your hi-fi up, full blast kind of listen. So yeah, that was
Yeah.
the whole process,
No,
I think. Yeah.
along those lines, bro, like the press release said that you strove for something more directly hostile with this album, and you pretty much just said that yourself that that's what you were going for. But how do you actually achieve a goal like that? Like you can't switch hostility off and on, like well, you shouldn't be able to anyway. Like how do you approach with that mindset in the studio for that to happen?
I guess again, it just comes from the writing, really. Like and then I know to a degree, like when you get to when you get to recording them like properly in the studio, you know the songs, like the emotion that you're projecting within the songs because you played them so many
Yeah.
times in the rehearsal room that you just know it and you feel it. So to a degree, like you can, I suppose, you can not in a not in a sense of like you're acting like it's still genuine, like the emotion, like and the outpouring that you do in the studio, but to a degree like you can switch into it because you know that that's what the songs are, and what the
Yeah.
songs are like for me, like all of our songs, and indeed, like most of the music that I love, it's like the music itself is like a conduit to express emotion, right?
Mhm.
So once you have a song and you know that that's the conduit for that emotion, like it does become a bit of a vehicle to be able to express it. So it's just like you know, you're jumping into a seat of a car that allows you to express what you're expressing. So
Mhm.
when you jump into the studio, and this is all stuff that I've learned over time because you're right, like, in the early days, I was a bit like, oh God, how do I capture what we do live?
Yeah.
Or, when we're or in the rehearsal room, how do I capture that in the studio where like studios can be, or I used to see them as being like quite like clinical environments in a sense that there are microphones everywhere and they're picking up your every last drop of
Mhm.
of what you're doing, and that used to freak me out a bit. And it was
Yeah,
like,
right.
you sometimes um I don't now like I used to, but I don't now listen back to our own music much at all. And I do that because I don't know if this is a good way to sell an album or not. But for me, for me, I'm just being honest though. But for
Yeah.
me, like listening back to what we have recorded, it never matches. It never elicits the same feeling I get when we're either recording it or performing it. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. Yeah.
So so I don't generally listen back. Like I know when I'm in the studio and I've done a vocal take, and I know that like that's the one, and I know it because I
Yeah.
like I feel it in my
Feel
heart,
it.
and I'm
Yeah.
that's it. And even if there's maybe like a couple of like mistakes in it or whatever, like I can just I live with that because I'm like, no, that was the one,
Yeah.
that was the take. Um, and yeah, that's the kind of that's they're the rules I live by. So then, when it comes to like reviewing what's been done, I kind of I hear it back, but it's never gonna make me
It's not
go
like
the
it.
way I
Yeah.
did
Yeah.
in that moment when I
Yeah.
recorded it. But I think that's the kind of the thing of like at that point, once you've recorded it, once you've done that, once you've had that like outpouring of emotion and you've gone, that's the take, that's the one I want to commit to the record. At that point, you're then passing it on to other people like yourself. You're passing it out to the world, and then hopefully, people can interpret those sounds and, you know, in some way be influenced by them to kind of feel in some way what I felt when I was recording them. That
Yeah, that's a really cool way of describing it, bro. Like and that's exactly what it's like, Like it's not complicated, but it is a complicated series of events that come together to elicit a
yeah,
response from music.
yeah, yeah, it's a weird thing. But
It
yeah,
is.
generally I don't listen back to stuff now. I just know that in the moment that was right. And then, we do listen back, because Sam then takes all the audio off and he
Yeah, of
does
course.
his production wizardry with it, and we'll listen back, and go, oh yeah, that sounds great. Maybe this is a little bit louder, or try that a little bit quieter, or whatever. It's usually minimal stuff though, because Sam's so like talented in that regard, and he's very, very obviously with him being in the band, he's very in tune with
Yeah, where it should go.
the music itself. So, usually it's like it's minimal stuff that we'll kind of request. And then it's off to the label. And
All right. See you later.
yeah, yeah.
I love the album title too, bro. Like Death Hilarious. Like it's one of those titles that even if someone's never heard of the band before, or never heard your music, it tells them enough about you guys to know whether you want to listen to it or not. It's a
Yeah,
beautiful. It's harsh, but it's fucking funny as.
yeah, yeah. It's good. It's from a book called Blood Meridian, which is by an author called Cormac McCarthy. Um, it's a phenomenal book, really quite bleak. Um, but yeah, we were all like we were away. We were doing a few shows like last year, and we were all rereading the book, like kind of one after the other. I think Sam was reading it whilst we were away, and then I have a copy of it at home, so I picked it up and I was reading through it when we were back home, and I think Adam was doing the same. And we did have a different title for the album that we settled on, and now honestly I can't remember what it was.
It
Like
couldn't
I
have been
just
as good. It
were like,
couldn't
oh
have been as
yeah,
good, mate. It wouldn't have been
yeah.
as good.
You well no, you know, it took us a while to settle on it as well. We were throwing things like backwards and forwards, and then we finally got one which kind of stuck. And then like I don't know, a few days later, Adam messaged everyone and said, "Hey, like, what do you think about Death Hilarious as a title for something?" You know, he wasn't. I don't even think at that point he was suggesting for the album. He was just like, "They're a title for something." I think we had a few like song titles still to kind of tie up, and I can't remember who suggested it, but we were like, "Well, why not the album? Let's ditch the other one." And I think we were just like all in on it. So it's like it's taken from a a passage in the book that's describing a Native American tribe riding their horses into like a kind of like a battle or fight scenario, and he describes them as looking death hilarious, and uh, and Adam, you know, quite rightly said like I think that's like a really good description of our band as well, um, which I agree with. And I like the kind of, you know, between the two words, there's that dichotomy of the two
Mm.
words as well, that kind of juxtaposition of like death being a really heavy, morbid subject, and yeah, hilarious
Hilarious being the exact opposite.
exactly what it is, and those two words together kind of combine and kind of capture the absurdity of of living, I suppose. So yeah, I was really pleased that he
Mhm.
suggested it, and we found it because it did take us a while to settle on whatever the other title was. It took us a while, and I think what sometimes when things like take a while, they're not. I prefer things to come like in a moment and in a flash. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
for everyone to kind of go, yeah,
More
that's it,
spontaneous.
rather than it feeling like some kind of protracted process that you're going through that's like, you know, it feels like a fucking referendum or something, just something really dull and boring. You know, it's yeah, yeah. So I'm really pleased we settled on that.
Well,
We
I'll
got
tell
them.
you a little story that might accentuate that a little bit more, mate. Like, because I get heaps of interview requests come across my desk every day, and I can't do them all, unfortunately. But when I came to yours, the clincher for me to say, "Yep, I'll take this one," was the album title, because I read that and it's just like,
Really,
these guys have got to have a sense of humor if they're calling their album that. So, it did, in a small way, it's helped me connect with someone on the other side of the world because I've got the same
yeah,
twisted sense of humor as you guys, I guess.
yeah. Did the band name also not give that away as well?
No, but band name gave me the shits, to be honest. I'm like, fucking, how many times are they saying this? It's like, fuck. I'm telling you that was negative, but you've made up for it with the album title.
Perfect. Great.
Oh shit! Now, You guys do experiment a lot with your style, with your genres, with your emotions musically, but you're 5 albums deep now, mate. So do you reckon you're closer to finding your definitive sound, or is it still a major work in progress?
I think you know I think the blueprint's there, but I think with like each album that we do, we always find like there's like two or three songs that we start to work on that feel quite different and quite unique. And I think that those ones are always the most exciting for me when they come around. And even like quite early on when we're starting to develop them, you get a sense that, oh, this one's going to be one of the cornerstones of the album.
Mhm.
So like on this one, I'd pick out The Worm, or you know, yeah, God, these should roll off my tongue because, Glib Tongue with LP on.
Yep.
Um, those sorts of tracks that kind of pop up, and like, on the last album, Land of Sleeper, there was The Weatherman and a couple of others. And they're the ones, they're like they almost feel like the kind of the bonus prizes whenever we're writing an album. And like, those are the ones that excite me. And I think, what we're where I said that we don't discuss what we want to do ahead of starting to write an
Mm.
album, but I think all of us collectively understand that with each album, and I think we've all got the same want for like each album to have like its own space, its own character. And Sam's really good at that in terms of like what he brings in production wise. Each album's always going to sound a little bit sonically different if anyone was mad enough to play, and you would, you'd be able to spot the differences between each album. Because I think, especially like production wise, like with rock and metal, people like, even sometimes like people will use different producers for across different albums, but there can be quite formulaic ways of producing rock and metal. And you might listen to a band's entire discography, and it's like, oh, a lot of these albums sonically sound the same.
Yep.
Whereas with our albums, I think and I think like, also the way that we write songs as well, and the way that we think about them, that offers a producer a bit more space to kind of experiment a little bit more. Um, so yeah, we always have like in mind that, and then we also have in mind that, like, we don't just want to keep writing the same songs over and over and over again. Um, so we do, I think, all yearn to find these like undiscovered kind of corners of the I don't know, of the room that we're writing in, or of the band. Um, if I'm speaking metaphorically, I suppose. And yeah, those are the most exciting parts for me. So yeah, Glib Tongue was totally one of those when it started to form. And the Worm as well. Like, that's been mega to play live. It's been one of my favorites. So.